Every state has ghost stories, but Nevada's feel different. A place of glittering casinos and endless desert highways, where fortunes are won on a single roll of dice and lost just as fast. But beyond the neon lights of Las Vegas, past the tourist brochures and postcard sunsets, there's another Nevada. A Nevada built on sweat and blood, on broken dreams and shallow graves, on towns that boomed overnight and died just as quickly. Out here, entire communities were swallowed by the desert, and many believe they never truly left. Because Nevada is not just the Silver State, it is one of the most haunted states in America. Nevada's history is brutal. During the mining booms of the late 1800s and early 1900s, thousands flooded into the desert chasing silver and gold. Towns sprang up overnight, but they were dangerous places. Explosions, cave-ins, plague outbreaks, gunfights, murders, suicides. When the mines ran dry, people vanished just as fast as they had arrived, leaving behind empty streets and crumbling buildings. And according to countless witnesses, they left something else behind too. Maybe it's isolation. Maybe it's the way civilization appears here only in small pockets, separated by enormous stretches of nothing. And when something strange happens, there's no witnesses, no explanations, just you, the dark, and the long road ahead. Skeptics will say that there are logical answers: exhaustion, loneliness, headlights just playing tricks on tired eyes. And sometimes they're probably right. But not every story is easy to dismiss. Too many people on too many different roads have seen things they cannot explain. And in a place as vast and as old as Nevada, it's not hard to believe that some memories never fade, that some travelers never leave, that along these endless highways we are never quite as alone as we think we are. This state was built fast and buried faster. Mines collapsed, stagecoaches overturned, and cars broke down where no help could reach them. People vanished between one lonely gas station and the next. And out here, there are no sidewalks to hold memories, no crowded streets to drown out the past. Only open land, only wind, only roads that seem to go on forever. Travelers like to say Nevada is empty. But empty places have a strange habit of filling themselves with stories and with shadows, with things that don't belong to the living anymore. I'm going to start with something a little more scarier than the grand hotels and the well-photographed ghost towns. I'm going to start with the shoulders of the highway, the back roads, the rest stops. The stretches of desert where headlights are the only source of light for 100 miles. Because in Nevada, some of the most unsettling encounters don't happen inside crumbling buildings. They happen at 60 miles an hour on a road that doesn't care if you make it home. Highway 50 was never meant to be lonely. In the 1860s, this route was alive with movement. Pony Express riders racing across the West, carrying mail between California and Utah. Later came prospectors, miners, settlers following the Central Overland Route. Stagecoaches rattled across the desert. Telegraph lines hummed overhead. For a time, this was one of the most important corridors in the country. But the world moved on. Railroads replaced horses, interstates replaced the two-lane highways, and towns that once bustled with life slowly went quiet. By 1986, when Life magazine drove across Nevada, they saw only emptiness. In their article called Highway 50, totally empty, with no points of interest. They warned travelers to bring extra water, extra fuel, and emergency supplies because help could be more than 100 miles away. The nickname stuck, the loneliest road in America. It was meant as an insult, but locals, they wear it like a badge of honor. This road follows ancient paths, native trade routes, Pony Express trails, wagon roads where thousands once passed, and many never returned. Today it connects fading towns, Fallon, Austin, Eureka, Ely, and between them, nothing. no streetlights, no self-service, no help for miles. Accidents out here are brutal. Truckers fall asleep at the wheel. Travelers break down and disappear into the desert. Snowstorms trap cars in the winter, and the heat kills in the summer. For more than a century, people have vanished along this stretch of asphalt, and over time, stories began to spread. Stories of phantom hitchhikers who vanish from back seats, or of ghost cars that appear in rearview mirrors and disappear into the thin air, and of figures standing on the roadside in places that no one could possibly be. Maybe it's imagination, maybe it's exhaustion, or maybe Highway 50 is crowded with travelers who never reach their destination. Some say it earned its nickname for the silence, and others say it earned it for the ghost. Tonight, we drive the road, and we find out why so many who travel it swear they are not alone out there. Highway 50 crosses nearly 400 miles of Nevada, from the Sierra Nevada mountains to the Utah border. And along that stretch sits towns and ruins and lonely landmarks with long histories and even longer legends. Here are 15 places directly on or just off of the loneliest road in America, where people have reported very strange things. One of Nevada's oldest settlements, beneath Dayton, runs the Sutro Tunnel, dug in the 1800s to drain the Comstock mines. Visitors and former caretakers have reported echoes of voices from sealed passages, sudden cold drafts from blocked shafts, and the feeling of being watched inside the tunnel entrance. No one claims the tunnel is safe to enter, but many insist that it isn't empty. Fort Churchill State Park, a crumbling Civil War-era fort just minutes off Highway 50. Park rangers and visitors have described phantom bugle calls at dusk, footsteps in empty barracks, and apparitions of soldiers near the old parade grounds. Enough reports exist that overnight staff rarely stay alone. Fallon, Nevada. Old Naval Air Station housing. Fallon is the last major town before true isolation begins. Residents of older military housing areas have long told stories of doors opening on their own and voices heard in empty rooms, and unexplained shadows in the hallways. Local folklore connects the activity to decades of accidents at the nearby base. Grimes Point petroglyphs. Just east of Fallon, ancient rock carvings line the desert hills. Paranormal groups investigating the area have reported electronic equipment failing, sudden feeling of dread, and sounds resembling distant chanting. Even skeptics agree that the site carries an intense atmosphere. Sand Mountain in Sand Springs Station. A massive singing sand dune beside the ruins of a Pony Express stop. Many modern visitors have claimed disembodied voices at night, and unexplained lights near the old station site, and cars refusing to start after sunset. Documented reports go back decades. Middlegate Station, a historic saloon and rest stop directly on Highway 50. Employees and travelers have described glasses sliding off the shelves, doors opening with no wind, and a shadow figure locals like to call the cowboy. The building has operated since the 1800s and seems to remember it. Cold Spring Station, another former Pony Express stop, now little more than a lonely landmark. Late-night visitors have reported knocking sounds on parked vehicles, figures standing near the abandoned structures, and the sensation of being followed when leaving. There's no town here, just miles of desert in every direction. Austin, Nevada, once Nevada's second largest city, is now a half-sleeping mining town. At St. Augustine Catholic Church and the Old International Hotel, people have reported organ music from locked buildings, footsteps in empty hallways, and cold spots moving through the rooms. Austin Cemetery is also known locally for unexplained lights after dark. ℉𝔞𝔲𝔬𝔞 petroglyph area, another ancient native site right beside Highway 50. Travelers stopping at the rest area have claimed sudden drops in temperature and strange sounds coming from the hills, and an uneasy feeling of being observed. Park signs even warn visitors not to explore alone at night. ™𝔬𝔬𝔫𝔱, Jackson House Hotel, perhaps the most haunted stop on the road. Staff and guests have documented doors slamming by themselves, voices in the locked rooms, and objects moving in the kitchen. Paranormal investigators have visited multiple times, leaving convinced that something unusual is definitely happening here. ™𝔬𝔬𝔫𝔱, the underground tunnels. Beneath the town lie old mining and bootlegging tunnels. Guides and tourists have reported disembodied laughter, footsteps behind them underground, and sudden cold air in sealed corridors. More than one visitor has left early, refusing to finish the tour. ™𝔞𝔲𝔬𝔫𝔱 State Park. A short detour from Highway 50 leads to this preserved ghost town. Rangers and campers have described noises inside the locked buildings, the sound of machinery late at night, and shadows moving between empty houses. The park closes at dusk for a reason. The long desert stretches between towns like Austin, Yreka, and Ely are hundreds of empty miles. This is where the most common reports occur. Phantom hitchhikers, they are seen and then they're disappearing. Old-fashioned cars appearing in mirrors, and radios changing stations on their own. Nevada State Patrol has logged numerous calls from drivers convinced that they almost hit someone who was never found. Ely, Nevada Northern Railway. At the eastern end of Highway 50 sits one of the most haunted museums in the state. Workers have reported phantom train whistles, voices from empty boxcars, and tools moving in locked workshops. Multiple paranormal teams have documented unexplained activity here. Ward Charcoal's Oven State Park. Just south of Ely stand 6 massive stone kilns from the 1870s, and visitors have experienced footsteps circling the ovens, echoes of voices with no source, and the sensation of being watched from inside the structures. Even in daylight, the place feels very heavy with history. 15 stops, hundreds of miles, and countless reports from people who had no reason to lie. Some of these places are museums, and some are ruins, and some are nothing more than just lonely pull-offs on the side of the road. But all of them share one thing. They sit along highway built on loss, on mining disasters, on accidents, on travelers who never made it home. And skeptics will say every story has an explanation. And maybe they're right. But drive Highway 50 after midnight, with the windows down and the radio quiet, and the desert stretching forever, and you might start to understand why so many people swear that this road is not as empty as it looks. Most haunted ghost towns of Nevada. ™𝔬𝔬𝔫𝔱, Nevada's most violent town. While Tombstone and Dodge City get most of the Wild West attention, the town of ™𝔬𝔬𝔫𝔱, Nevada, may have been even rougher. Founded in the 1870s during a silver boom, ™𝔬𝔬𝔫𝔱 quickly gained a reputation for chaos and bloodshed. Law enforcement was almost non-existent, and disputes were often settled with guns instead of courts. Local legend claims that the town cemetery held 72 graves before a single person died of natural causes. Whether that number is exact or not, the violence was real. Today, ™𝔬𝔬𝔫𝔱 is quiet, but many believe it never truly became peaceful. The Overland Hotel and Saloon, rebuilt in 1948 after a devastating fire, is considered the center of paranormal activity. Guests and employees have reported shadow figures moving through the hallways, voices coming from empty rooms, and objects shifting on their own. The sensation of being watched while alone. Staff members are so accustomed to strange experiences that they often warn the overnight visitors about the most active rooms. ™𝔬𝔬𝔫𝔱 may have settled down over the years, but many say the past never left. ™𝔳𝔞𝔲𝔢𝔡, the town that died overnight. Near Beatty, Nevada, sits the ruins of ™𝔳𝔞𝔲𝔢𝔡, one of the most famous ghost towns in the American West. At its peak in 1907, nearly 10,000 people lived there. The town had banks, schools, newspapers, electric power, and a railroad depot. By the 1920s, almost everyone was gone. When the gold ran out, ™𝔳𝔞𝔲𝔢𝔡 collapsed with shocking speed. Families left their homes, and businesses closed, and the desert slowly reclaimed the streets. What remains today are empty stone buildings and silent foundations, and a long list of strange stories. Visitors frequently reporting, feeling as though unseen eyes are watching them, hearing footsteps behind them on empty streets, and seeing figures in the windows of old cook bank building, and unexplained lights moving through abandoned structures at night. Photographers have captured images that appear to show people standing inside the buildings that have been vacant for decades. Even during the day, many describe ™𝔳𝔞𝔲𝔢𝔡 as heavy and uncomfortable, a place filled with disappointing and loss. When the sun goes down and the wind moves through the ruins, the town can feel far from empty. Nevada was built underground, silver and gold pulled from the deep rock, and with the wealth came disaster, cave-ins, floods, explosions, fires. Across the state, dozens of mines became graves. But one tragedy stands above the rest: the Belmont mine fire, Tonopah, Nevada. Tonopah exploded into existence in the 1900s after a massive silver discovery. Within months, it became one of the richest mining districts in America. One of its largest operations was the Belmont Mine, a sprawling maze of shafts running beneath the town. Mining there was dangerous from the beginning, and in 1911, that danger turned catastrophic. September of 1911, deep underground, a fire broke out. The exact cause was never confirmed. Possibly faulty wiring, possibly blasting powder. What mattered was how fast it spread. Wooden supports ignited, and ventilation pipes carried flames and smoke through the tunnels. Carbon monoxide filled the shafts. Rescuers tried to reach the trapped men. They couldn't. By the time the fire was contained, 17 miners were dead, some suffocated and some burned. Several were never recovered at all. Their bodies were buried on a hill overlooking town, what is now the old Tonopah Cemetery, directly beside the modern Clown Motel. For more than a century, strange experiences have been tied to the Belmont mine ruins. Visitors and locals have described voices echoing from sealed shafts, the distant sound of pickaxes where no one is working, sudden blast of cold air from the mine entrances, the unexplained smell of smoke, and shadow figures near the old tunnels, and lights seen moving underground at night. Some claim activity increases every September, near the anniversary of the fire. The Belmont Mine is the most famous, but it's not the only one. The Yellow Jacket Mine, Virginia City, 1869, underground fire. Around 35 miners were killed. Many bodies were never recovered. Nearby Gold Hill Hotel is considered haunted because of that disaster. Then there is Lake Mead. Beneath its waters lies entire drowned towns, including St. Thomas, abandoned and swallowed when the dam was completed. Boaters on the lake sometimes claim to hear church bells or see lights moving along the submerged ruins. Hoover Dam holds back millions of tons of water. Many believe it also holds something else: the restless spirits of the men who never went home. When the Hoover Dam was finished, the Colorado River backed up and formed Lake Mead, the largest reservoir in the United States. Entire canyons were flooded. Old camps, mining claims, construction sites, all swallowed by water. Over the decades, Lake Mead has become infamous for something else: bodies. As water levels drop in modern times, human remains have begun surfacing, some connected to mob activity in Las Vegas, and others far older and unidentified. But even long before these discoveries, boaters and park rangers told stories about the lake. Unexplained lights drifting across the water at night, and voices carrying over empty coves, and figures seen standing on shorelines that no longer exist. Fishermen have reported seeing shapes moving beneath the surface that didn't look like fish at all. Whether those stories are imagination or something more has never been proven. But the lake holds layers of history beneath it, and history, out here, rarely stays buried. No discussion of Nevada's ghost stories would be complete without mentioning the enigmatic Lake Tahoe. The lake, with its clear blue waters, has witnessed countless tragedies over the years, many of which have contributed to the eerie tales that surround it. From drowned souls to ghostly shipwrecks, Lake Tahoe's dark history is intertwined with the supernatural. One of the most well-known ghost stories surrounding the lake involves a sunken boat from the 1800s. According to local legend, a group of miners set sail on the lake to transport their valuable supplies, but their boat sank in the middle of a violent storm. To this day, divers and boaters near the lake report hearing unexplained sounds like the faint clang of metal, believed to be the remnants of the lost vessel. Others have claimed to see a ghostly apparition of the miners still searching the lake's depths for their lost cargo. Lake Tahoe is also said to be home to the spirit of a woman in white who appears along the shore on foggy nights. Witnesses have described her as a ghostly figure that roams the beaches dressed in a flowing white gown, often seen staring out into the water as if waiting for someone. Some people believe that she's the spirit of a woman who drowned in the lake many years ago, while others might suggest that she is a more recent apparition, still lost in the mist of time. Most people see Hoover Dam and think of engineering. They think of concrete and turbines, of the Colorado River tamed into submission, of one of the greatest construction achievements in American history. What they don't think about is how many men that it took to build it, or how many men never left. In the early 1930s, America was drowning in the Great Depression. Jobs were scarce, money was gone, and families were desperate. Then the government announced a project so massive that it sounded impossible. A dam would be built in Black Canyon on the border of Nevada and Arizona, 726 feet high. Thick enough at the base to fit 2 football fields back to back, powerful enough to control the wild, violent Colorado River. It would bring electricity to the desert and water to big dry cities and work to thousands of starving men. Over 21,000 workers flooded into the area almost overnight. They lived in makeshift camps in brutal desert heat. Eventually, a company town, Boulder City, was built just to house them. But nothing about the job was safe. Construction officially began in 1931. From the very first day, men started dying. The temperature inside Black Canyon regularly climbed above 120 degrees. Workers hung from ropes along the canyon walls, drilling into rocks, while loose boulders would rain down on them. Carbon monoxide filled the diversion tunnels so badly that some men collapsed right where they stood. Officially, it was called pneumonia. Unofficially, everyone knew the truth. They were being poisoned by exhaust with no proper ventilation. Blasting accidents were common, and equipment failures were common, and falling was common. Hard hats weren't even required until partway through the project. By the time the dam was completed in 1936, the government officially listed 96 men as having died during this construction. But that number has been argued about for decades because the official count only included on-site construction deaths. It didn't include workers who died from heat stroke, men killed in related accidents, families who perished in the camps, suicides from the brutal conditions, and deaths from carbon monoxide poisoning that were labeled as natural causes. Many historians believe that the real number is far higher. Locals have always said it more bluntly. Hoover Dam was built with concrete, steel, and bodies. For a structure made of stone and machinery, Hoover Dam has an uncomfortable reputation. Employees who work there after dark admit that they hate the night shifts. Deep inside the dam are miles of narrow service tunnels, long concrete corridors lined with pipes and echoing machinery. Guards and maintenance workers have reported hearing footsteps following behind them, voices echoing from empty passageways, the sound of coughing or labored breathing, and tools falling when no one else is present. More than one worker has quit after refusing to go back into certain sections alone. Visitors on guided tours have reported sudden, intense cold spots inside certain rooms of the dam. Despite the Nevada heat outside, they report cameras malfunctioning, batteries draining. Unexplained shadows appear in photographs. The Goldfield Hotel opened in 1908 at the height of Nevada's gold mining boom. Built at a cost of $400,000, it was the most expensive building constructed between San Francisco and Denver of that time. The hotel featured 154 rooms, mahogany columns, and ornate gold leaf ceilings. It was financed by mining magnate George Wingfield and quickly became the social center of Goldfield, Nevada. During the early 1900s, Goldfield was one of the largest and richest mining towns in the West. At its peak, more than 20,000 people lived there. The Goldfield Hotel hosted politicians, businessmen, and wealthy travelers drawn to the booming mining district. But like many Nevada towns, Goldfield's prosperity didn't last. By the early 1920s, the mines began to dry up. Jobs disappeared, businesses closed, and the population just rapidly declined. The hotel struggled to survive through multiple owners and changing times. In 1945, after decades of decline, the Goldfield Hotel closed for good. From that point forward, the building sat largely abandoned. Over the years, it suffered vandalism, neglect, and failed attempts at restoration. Workers hired to repair the structure repeatedly walked off the job, claiming they experienced disturbing and unexplained events inside. Today, the hotel remains mostly empty, a massive, silent reminder of Goldfield's lost glory. No story is more famous than the legend of Elizabeth. According to long-told local lore, Elizabeth was a young woman involved in an affair with George Wingfield. The story claims that she became pregnant and that Wingfield, fearing scandal, locked her inside room 109. The legend says that Elizabeth gave birth alone while chained to a radiator, and the child was supposedly taken from her and killed. Elizabeth herself is said to have died in that same room. There's no historical documentation to prove this story, no death records, police reports, or newspaper articles confirming that it ever happened. Even so, the tale has been reported for decades and has become the central myth attached to the hotel. Another enduring legend claims that the building sits on top of an old Native American burial ground. Like many haunted locations across the country, this belief is based on rumor rather than verified history. There are also stories of gamblers, miners, and guests who died inside the hotel during its operational years, though most of these accounts are impossible to confirm. But what can be confirmed is that people have been reporting strange experiences inside the Goldfield Hotel for generations, and there's many reported hauntings. The Goldfield Hotel is considered one of the most active paranormal locations in Nevada. Common reports include sudden, unexplained temperature dropping, sounds of footsteps in empty hallways, doors opening, closing on their own, voices heard in vacant rooms, shadow-like figures seen moving through the corridors, and electronic equipment failing without cause. Many of these experiences are most often reported on the third floor, which investigators consider the center of the hotel's activity. Room 109 is definitely the most haunted spot in the building, though. Visitors frequently describe intense feelings of sadness, fear, dread when entering, and some claim to hear faint crying sounds or disembodied whispers. Others report cold air near the radiator when Elizabeth was supposedly restrained there. Throughout the building, people have described hearing conversations when no one else is present, and seeing a well-dressed man in early 1900s clothing being touched or pushed by unseen hands, batteries draining rapidly from cameras and flashlights, and unexplained lights or movement in the upper windows. Paranormal teams who have entered the hotel over the years claim to have captured audio recordings of voices, strange photographs, and unexplained anomalies. Skeptics attribute many of these experiences to the building's age or unstable structure and the power of suggestion, but believers insist that something remains inside this old hotel. There are places where we don't quite feel alone. Maybe our skin kind of feels like it's going to crawl. Maybe it just doesn't quite feel right there. In Tonopah, Nevada, high in the desert hills between Reno and Las Vegas, one such place sits in plain sight. Right beside a neon-lit roadside motel filled with clown statues and blinking vacancy signs, there is a field of weathered headstones and crooked wooden markers. More than 300 graves, some known, some forgotten, and some barely marked at all. This is the old Tonopah Cemetery, and for over a century, it has been collecting stories that refuse to rest. Tonopah exploded into existence almost overnight. In 1900, silver was discovered in the surrounding hills. Within months, tents turned into buildings, prospectors turned into millionaires, and a raw desert outpost turned into one of Nevada's most important mining towns. But mining towns grow fast, and then they die fast too. By the early 1900s, Tonopah was filled with miners, lawn keepers, gamblers, lawmen, families, and drifters. Thousands of people chasing fortune in one of the harshest environments in America. Not all of them survived the chase. The old Tonopah Cemetery became the place where their stories ended. Over the years, myths grew around the cemetery. People said it closed because it became overcrowded, but that's not true. Others whispered about a mysterious Tonopah plague that supposedly wiped out huge numbers of residents in 1902. That isn't true either. The real history is far more grounded and somehow more unsettling. In 1905, 56 people died in just 4 months, not from anything supernatural, but from pneumonia, brought on by poor sanitation and overcrowded conditions, and slaughterhouses operating too close to town. Death here was not mysterious, it was ordinary and relentless. The cemetery didn't close because it was full. It closed because the mine itself began to swallow it. Tailings from the Tonopah extension mine slowly washed over the graves, burying markers and toppling stones and erasing them. The mining company planning to expand pressured the town to abandon the property entirely. Rather than protect the dead, the industry that created Tonopah pushed them aside. A new cemetery was donated, and the old one was left behind. Today, visitors can walk among the crooked rows with a printed map, following a self-guided tour that reads less like a cemetery guide and more like a collection of unfinished biographies. By day, the old Tonopah Cemetery is a historical site, but by night, it becomes something else entirely. Visitors have reported the familiar things said about old graveyards everywhere. Cold spots that move between headstones, strange lights drifting among the markers, and whispers carried on the wind that isn't there. But Tonopah has something that most cemeteries don't. It sits directly beside one of the strangest roadside stops in America, the Clown Motel. Brace yourself for a double dose of dread. Picture this, a motel decked out in clown decor, where thousands of clown figurines stare back at you from every corner. And if that is not eerie enough, just next door is the Restless Souls from 1900 Miners, a cemetery that might just tip the scales, the Tonopah. If clowns give you the creeps, take note. It's not just the lobby that's a clown extravaganza. Each room greets you with clown-themed doors and walls adorned with clowns masquerading as rock icons and horror film stars. But let's tip our hats to the true architect of ambience, the old Tonopah Cemetery next door, which I've already talked about. So long before the Clown Motel hoisted its colorful tent, this plot was the town's final resting place. So the Clown Motel is on that property. In this treacherous mining town, tragedy struck so frequently that it only took a decade for 300 souls to be laid to rest, filling the cemetery to the brim. Many guests report feeling an otherworldly presence, often thought to be the spirits of those seeking a cozier spot than their earthly beds. The motel was established in 1985 by Leona and Leroy David to honor their father, Clarence David, a devoted clown collector who perished in the 1942 Belmont mine fire. So it started with Clarence's original collection of 150 clown figurines in the lobby. The motel now holds over 4,000 clown statues and memorabilia. Heck no. The clowns are said to act as vessels for the spirits of the miners, which come to life and haunt the motel. Each room features creepy clown art with faces staring down at guests as they try to sleep. And some guests have heard disembodied voices saying phrases like, "We mined," and "We died that day." The Clown Motel in Tonopah has gained international fame as one of the creepiest places in America, not just because of its unsettling decor, but because of the experiences that the guests have reported there. With the cemetery beside it holding graves from the early 1900s and many belonging to miners killed in a devastating fire in 1911, visitors claim that those restless spirits wander freely between the graveyard and the motel. Many people have reported clown dolls moving on their own, knocking on doors in the middle of the night, and children's laughter in empty hallways, dark figures standing at the foot of beds. Several former employees have admitted that they refuse to work night shifts alone, and countless travelers have checked in for fun, ironic stay, only to leave terrified before morning. At first glance, the Clown Motel looks just like a joke, but it actually is one of the most haunted places in Nevada. Next comes the Pioneer Saloon in Good Springs, Nevada. It was built in 1913, bullet holes still marking the walls. Clark Gable waited here for news of his wife Carol Lombard's fatal plane crash. Some say her spirit still walks the bar. Other ghosts include Paul Koski, killed over a card game, and a phantom bartender, and another mysterious lady in red. The Westgate Resort, site of a deadly 1981 fire that killed 8 people. Guests now report shadowy figures in the hallways and unexplained screams, and the ghost of Elvis Presley himself seen on balconies and backstage corridors. The Mob Museum, housed in a former courthouse. Artifacts from violent crime seem to have brought their energy with them. Visitors there feel pushed, grabbed, and overwhelmed, especially near the St. Valentine's Day Massacre Wall and Albert Anastasia's barber chair. The Boulder Dam Hotel in Boulder City. Built in 1933 to house visiting dignitaries during the construction of Hoover Dam, the Boulder Dam Hotel was meant to be elegant and refined. Presidents, movie stars, and wealthy businessmen stayed here. But not everyone who entered left. During the brutal years of the dam's construction, many workers lived in Boulder City. Accidents were common, and then death was an accepted risk. Some of those workers frequented the hotel bar, and some, it seems, never stopped. Guests have reported seeing the apparition of an elderly woman sitting in the lobby late at night, only to vanish when approached. Room 104 seems to be especially active. People have woken up to a feeling of someone sitting on the edge of their bed, and lights flicker, doors open and close by themselves. Staff members claim to hear 1930s-style music drifting through the walls when no radio was on. The hotel looks peaceful, but history lingers in its walls. Bonnie Springs Ranch in Blue Diamond, Nevada. At the edge of Red Rock Canyon once stood Bonnie Springs Ranch, a Western-themed attraction built on land that had been occupied since the 1840s. Long before it became a tourist destination, the area served as a stopover for wagon trains and weary travelers heading west. Many never made it farther. The ranch included an old replica mining town, a saloon, and even a small opera house. And almost every inch of it was said to be haunted. Employees have reported seeing a little girl in a white dress wandering near the old schoolhouse. Guests have claimed to hear phantom piano music coming from empty buildings. The most famous spirit was believed to be that of a woman who died on the property in the late 1800s. She was often seen standing on balconies or looking out windows. Even after the ranch closed in 2019, stories continue to circulate among former workers who insist that the land itself was alive with spirits. Some places, even when they're torn down, are nearly never truly empty. The ℧𝒦𝒋𝒶 Opera House, Yreka, Nevada. Built in 1880, the ℧𝒦𝒋𝒶 Opera House was once the cultural heart of this small mining town. Plays, concerts, dances, and community events filled this grand hall, but tragedy found its way inside as well. One of the most persistent legends involves a former stagehand who died in an accident backstage. Workers today claim that he still wanders the catwalks, making his presence very known. Lights are turned on by themselves, props are moved overnight, and footsteps echo across the empty stage. Performers have described feeling an unseen audience even when rehearsing alone. The final curtain, it seems, never fell for everyone. The Belmont Courthouse, Belmont, Nevada. Belmont is another Nevada town that boomed and then faded into near oblivion. Its old courthouse still stands, a beautiful brick building filled with history, and many say filled with spirits. The courthouse once saw murder trials, executions, and heated disputes over mining claims. Visitors have reported seeing figures looking out from second-story windows and hearing voices drifting through the empty rooms. The feeling inside the courthouse is heavy, as if the building remembers every dark moment that it ever witnessed. Some believe the condemned men who were sentenced there never truly left. Virginia City Cemetery in Virginia City, Nevada. Virginia City Cemetery in Virginia City, Nevada. High on a hill overlooking the town rests the Virginia City Cemetery, one of the largest and oldest burial grounds in Nevada. It holds thousands of graves, miners killed in accidents, women who died in childbirth, children lost to disease, and men shot in the streets below. Many died violently, many died young. It's not one cemetery, but many, divided in by religion and culture, Catholic, Masonic, firefighters, and more. The cemetery is divided into sections based on religion and social status, a haunting reminder of the divisions that existed even in death. Paranormal investigators frequently capture strange lights moving among the graves, and visitors have reported seeing people dressed in the 1800s clothing walking between the headstones at dusk. EVPs recorded here often include names, dates, and pleas for help. Visitors walking among the crumbling headstones often describe the same experiences. Strange lights moving between the graves at night, apparitions dressed in the 1800s clothing, the feeling of being followed along the dirt paths, voices carried on the wind when no one else is around. Paranormal investigators have captured EVPs here that seem to respond to names on the gravestones. Some say that when the sun goes down and the temperature drops, the entire hillside just feels crowded, as if the population of Virginia City never truly left. On the surface, Virginia City looks like a preserved tourist town. Wooden sidewalks, souvenir shops, old saloons. But beneath the charm is a place built on tragedy. Hundreds died in the mines. Dozens more died in violence. Entire families disappeared when money ran out. The building stands still, and many believe the people who filled them are still there too. In Virginia City, history is not just remembered. It might still be kind of happening. The ℎ𝔬𝔬𝔫𝔱 Hotel, the bloodiest town. ℎ𝔬𝔬𝔫𝔱, Nevada, earned a terrible nickname, the deadliest town in the West. In its early years, it was said that 72 men died violently before a single person died of natural causes. Shootings were so common that the local cemetery filled faster than the town itself. At the center of ℎ𝔬𝔬𝔫𝔱 stood the ™𝔬𝔬𝔫𝔱 Hotel. When silver was discovered in the 1860s, ℎ𝔬𝔬𝔫𝔱 exploded overnight into one of the deadliest mining camps in the American West. The town became so violent that it was once said more men were buried than houses were built, and by some accounts, one man died for every day of the year. The ™𝔬𝔬𝔫𝔱 Hotel rose in the center of this chaos. Constructed in the early 1870s, the hotel served miners, gunmen, prostitutes, gamblers, and men who expected to die young. ℎ𝔬𝔬𝔫𝔱 had 72 saloons, 32 brothels, and virtually no effective law enforcement during its peak years. Gunfights were routine, murders were frequent, and many killings were never investigated at all. The ™𝔬𝔬𝔫𝔱 was not just a place to sleep, it was a witness. Modern guests describe heavy footsteps pacing the upstairs hall, doors locking and unlocking by themselves, the feeling of being watched while sleeping, apparitions standing at the foot of beds. Room 10 is particularly feared. More than one visitor has fled in the middle of the night after waking to see a shadowy figure looming over them. ℎ𝔬𝔬𝔫𝔱 has long since quieted down, but many says its violent past never did. The Westgate Resort, Las Vegas, Nevada. Even modern Nevada has ghosts. The Westgate Resort in Las Vegas was the site of a catastrophic fire in 1981 that killed 8 people. And since then, employees have reported shadow figures in the upper floor hallways, unexplained screams and alarms, and cold spots that appear and vanish. And then there is the most famous resident of all, Elvis Presley. The hotel was once the International Hotel, where Elvis performed hundreds of shows. Staff and guests still claim to see his figure backstage, in elevators, and on balconies overlooking the showroom. Piper's Opera House. During the 1800s, Piper's Opera House hosted traveling families of performers. One story tells of a young actress who fell ill while touring and died in Virginia City. Here's what people have experienced. Visitors and investigators claim to have heard a young girl singing from the balcony, seen a child in Victorian clothing backstage, and recorded EVPs of a girl answering questions. They've even felt small hands grabbing them during tours. The spirit is considered harmless and even friendly, almost as if she has never left the theater that she loved. The old 𝔂𝔂 Club opened in the 1870s as an elite gentlemen's club for the wealthiest men of the ℏ Downstairs was a saloon and card room. Upstairs, it was private rooms where deals were made and fortunes were lost, and occasionally lives were ended. It was a place of indulgence, drinking, gambling, opium, prostitution. It was a place of violence. More than a few men died inside that 𝔂𝔂 Club. Bar fights turned deadly. Cheaters were beaten. Desperate miners who lost everything sometimes ended their lives in the upstairs rooms. Today, the building is considered one of the most haunted locations in the entire American West. A place where the chandeliers no longer sparkle, where the wine room stands empty, and where laughter faded more than a century ago. The most famous apparition from the 𝔂𝔂 Club is the Lady in Blue, also known as Lena. Often seen near the spiral staircase, she drifts in a blue dress, said to be a murdered call girl. Visitors have also reported the presence of a little girl in white, shy and fleeting. She has a very peculiar habit. When climbing the staircase, a small hand may touch yours, only to simply vanish when you try to look. Downstairs, the miner at the bar continues his nightly routine. Bar stools move on their own, bourbon shots disappear, and the spirit seems to welcome any drink that's left out for him. In other reported hauntings, a shadowy figure roams the hallways, cold spots appear without warning, and full-bodied apparitions have been caught on camera during paranormal investigations. The building hums with the lives of those who never left, making the old 𝔂𝔂 Club one of Nevada's most chilling haunted locations. The Silver Queen Hotel, Virginia City, Nevada. Virginia City sits high in the Nevada mountains like a museum that never closed. Weathered wooden sidewalks, sagging balconies, old brick buildings baked by a century and a half of desert sun. At night, the town grows quiet in a way modern cities never do. The wind whistles through abandoned mines. Floorboards creak for no reason at all. And in the heart of this town stands a building that has watched it all happen. Built in 1876, just a few years after the discovery of the Comstock Lode, the Silver Queen is the oldest continuously operating hotel in Virginia City. It has survived fires, financial collapses, saloon brawls, epidemics, and the slow death of the Wild West. But many believe that something else survived along with it, something unseen, something that never left. When the Silver Queen Hotel first opened its doors, Virginia City was one of the most richest places on earth. Silver poured in out of the mountains. Miners, gamblers, businessmen, and opportunists flooded the streets. Saloons and brothels lined C Street, and money changed hands as fast as whiskey was poured. The hotel became a centerpiece of that roaring era, a place where travelers slept in brass beds and looked out over the miles of high desert and dreamed of striking it rich. Even today, walking inside feels like stepping backward in time. Antique furniture, narrow staircases, and hallways that still smell faintly of old wood and cigar smoke. One of the hotel's most famous features is the massive Silver Queen portrait hanging on the wall. A 15-foot-tall image of a woman, created from 3,261 real Morgan silver dollars. Each coin representing 1 foot of the deepest mine shaft in Virginia City. It's a tribute to wealth. But it's also a reminder of the cost of that wealth, because Virginia City was not built only on silver. It was built on exhaustion, accidents, violence, and death. Staff at the Silver Queen will tell you the building has never truly been empty, not even when it should be. For decades, guests and employees have reported the same strange experiences, noises with no source, voices from vacant rooms, and the feeling of being watched in the empty hallways. Rooms 11 and 13 are considered the most active. Visitors staying in those rooms often describe being awakened in the middle of the night by tapping on the walls or the sounds of the doorknobs rattling as if someone's trying to get in. Other reports of loud bangs echoing through the floor, footsteps pacing back and forth, despite the fact that the hotel rooms are carpeted and no one is staying nearby. More than once, frightened guests have gone to the front desk to complain about the people next door, only to be told that something deeply unsettling. There is nobody next door. They are alone on the entire floor. Let's go a little deeper into these hauntings. Room 11, Rosie. At the center of Silver Queen's ghostly reputation is one name, Rosie. According to long-standing hotel legend, Rosie was a working girl, a lady of the night, who lived in Virginia City during its roughest years. Sometime in the late 1800s, overcome with despair, she is said to have taken her own life inside room 11. Whether the exact historical record of Rosie exists or not, her presence is treated as very real by those who work there. And guests, especially male guests, have reported strange, intensely personal encounters in that room. A lot of unexplained knocks at the door, whispers when no one else is present, the feeling of someone sitting on the edge of the bed in the middle of the night. Some have even claimed to see the faint outline of a woman standing near the window, only for her to simply vanish when the light is turned on. Employees say that Rosie seems to favor certain visitors, making herself known more strongly to men staying alone, as if she's still working, still waiting, but still trapped. But Rosie is not the only spirit said to roam the Silver Queen. Another ghost, known simply as Annie, has also become part of the hotel's haunted identity. But unlike Rosie, Annie's story is far less defined. No one knows exactly who she was in life or how she passed, yet her presence has been reported again and again. The Silver Queen's reputation has spread far beyond Nevada. Paranormal investigators, historians, and curiosity seekers travel from all around the world to spend a night inside its walls. 𝒦𝒽 Hotel, Tonopah, Nevada. Out in the high Nevada desert, between empty highways and silent mountains, sits a town that was never supposed to last. Tonopah, a place born from silver, shaped by desperation and hardened by death. At its center rises a 5-story building that has watched more than a century of hopes, scandals, fortunes, and tragedies pass through its doors. The 𝒦𝒽 Hotel. The 𝒦𝒽 Hotel. 𝒦𝒽 Hotel. Once called the Jewel of the Desert, it was meant to be a symbol of elegance and success in the middle of nowhere. Today, it is better known for something else. Whispers, shadows, and a woman in red who many believe never left. In 1907, at the height of Tonopah's prosperity, construction began on a grand new hotel. It would be called 𝒦𝒽. Designed by architect Muriel J. Curtis at the staggering cost of $200,000, the 𝒦𝒽 was intended to be the social and cultural heart of the town. When it opened, it was unlike anything else in Nevada. 5 stories tall, it became the tallest building in the state. Inside were brilliant brass chandeliers and stained glass windows and solid oak furnishings, and one of Nevada's very first electric elevators. Steam heat warmed the rooms. Fine dining filled the dining hall. Politicians, miners, celebrities, and socialites all passed through its doors. For decades, the ℍ Hotel represented luxury on the frontier. The hotel played host to some of the most notable figures of the era. Boxing legend Jack Dempsey fought some of his earliest matches in Tonopah and spent time inside the ℍ. Today, the hotel's elegant dining hall still bears his name, the Jack Dempsey Room. United States Senator Key Pittman was another frequent guest. According to long-standing local lore, Pittman died of a heart attack inside the hotel the night before the 1940 election. Supporters, desperate to avoid political chaos, supposedly kept his body on ice in a bathtub until the election was over. Whether fact or legend, stories like these helped cement the ℍ as more than just a hotel. It was a place where history happened. Today, the ℍ Hotel proudly advertises itself as one of the most haunted hotels in America, and few who stay there would argue. Guests and staff alike report strange and unexplained experiences, cold spots that appear out of nowhere, whispers in the empty hallways, objects that move on their own, shadowy figures in mirrors and doorways, and the eerie feeling of being watched. But among all the spirits said to haunt the ℍ, one stands above the rest. Rose, the lady in red. She lived and worked on the 5th floor of the hotel during the roaring 1920s, a time when Tonopah was still full of miners with money to burn. Rose was said to be kind and charming and generous, but she lived a dangerous life. The story goes that one night, a jealous former lover forced his way into her suite, and in a violent rage, he stabbed and strangled her to death. She was wearing a pearl necklace when she died, and many believe she has never left. The 5th floor of the ℍ is considered the heart of the haunting. Guests staying in rooms 502, 503, and 504. Those rooms were converted from Rose's original suite, often report the strongest activity. Men have felt someone whisper softly in their ear when no one is there. Items go missing, only to reappear later in strange places. And the most famous phenomenon of all, guests frequently wake up to find loose pearls tucked beneath their pillows. Room 504 is officially known today as the Lady in a Red Room, decorated with scarlet curtains and an antique canopy bed in her honor. Yet many believe room 502 is where her murder actually took place and where her presence is the strongest. Even the old electric elevator is said to carry echoes of her spirit, creaking and groaning as if she still rides it from the lobby to her floor. Not all the spirits of the ℍ are friendly as Rose. Deep beneath the hotel in the closed-off basement, something far darker is said to linger. Staff members tell stories of two very tall, intimidating figures believed to be the spirits of miners who were buried alive in a cave-in, and somehow they attached themselves to the hotel. Others say they are not miners at all, but the ghost of bank robbers murdered during a long-ago heist. Whatever they are, employees often refuse to go into the basement alone, and those who have described overwhelming feelings of being unwanted down there, watched, threatened. On the 3rd floor, a very different kind of haunting takes place. Guests have reported seeing small children running through the hallways late at night, only to vanish the moment that the lights are turned on. Others hear childish laughter echoing outside their rooms, even when no children are staying at the hotel. Some have called the front desk to complain about noise, only to be told that they are completely alone on that floor. Some have called the front desk to complain about noise, only to be told that they are completely alone on that floor. Another spirit is said to wander the 3rd and 4th floors, a man believed to be a soldier who died inside the hotel long ago. No one knows his name, no records remain, but guests have reported seeing him standing silently in the hallways before fading away. Even after its restoration, the ™𝔞𝔲𝔄 Hotel remains a place where the past feels very close. Antique furnishings fill the rooms. Old black and white photographs watch from the walls. Drawers and creaking floors remind visitors they are stepping into another century. By day, it's elegant and welcoming, but by night, many say it becomes something else entirely, a crossroads of history and the unknown. Tonopah was built on silver, but the ™𝔞𝔲 Hotel was built on stories. Some of them are recorded in history books. Others, they live only in whispers, footsteps, shadows. And whether you believe in ghosts or not, one thing's certain. At the ™𝔞𝔲 Hotel, the past is never really the past. And somewhere on the 5th floor, the lady in red is still receiving guests. Nevada is a state born from desperation, hope. People came here to strike it rich, to reinvent themselves, and to outrun their past. And many found fortune. Many, many more found death. Mining disasters, lawless towns, lonely deserts, and forgotten cemeteries created the perfect breeding grounds for legends and restless spirits. Across Nevada, entire communities rose. They lived, they suffered, vanished. The buildings remain, the stories remain, and if the countless eyewitnesses are to be believed, so do the ghosts. All right, that was just part of Ghost of Nevada. I'm sure there's so much more. I only gave you a little tip of the iceberg, a little taste of it. This may want you going and wanting more. Go do your own little research and watch other videos, documentaries. I definitely want to go to Nevada. Go to Nevada and experience it. So I really enjoyed it. So I'll see you guys next time on Tales Told in the Dark.